This is the story of Blackbeard. Picture this. It's 1717 and a shadow sails across the Caribbean Sea. Imagine a ship with a huge black flag, like an omen of doom against the endless blue sky, with a towering wall of cannons pointed right at you. At the helm stands a giant of a man. You can see the burning fuses woven into his thick, tangled beard. Around his face, smoke swirls like a demon rising from hell. His name was Edward Teach, but the world knew him as Blackbeard. And this is his story. No one knows exactly when or where Edward Teach was born. Most accounts agree it was around 1680. They also agree it was probably in Bristol, England, a port city on the edge of the ocean where the air always smelled of salt, smoke, and opportunity. But everything else is up for debate, including his looks, his personality, and yes, even his birthplace. Some say he was born in West Country, some say London. Some say he was tall and handsome, others say he was short and stumpy. Some say he was vicious and cruel, others say he was honorable and fair. What we do know is that young Edward was clever, literate, and bold. And he had a burning curiosity about ships and the sea. When he was just a teenager, he enlisted in the Royal Navy during Queen Anne's War, where he learned the art of seamanship and the chaos of battle. But when the war ended in 1713, peace left thousands of sailors without work. Many turned to the one career that was still hiring: piracy. There were no formal rules to becoming a pirate, no application forms or job interviews. All you needed was a boat, some supplies, and the courage to challenge the might of the Navy. For Edward Teach, it was the chance he'd been waiting for. And according to legend, he wasted no time seizing it. He joined a small pirate crew under the command of a seasoned buccaneer, Captain Benjamin Hornigold. Together they sailed around the Lesser Antilles, pillaging on Spanish treasure ships and unsuspecting merchant vessels. Under Hornigold's wing, Edward learned the ins and outs of plundering, how to navigate treacherous waters and deadly reefs, how to hide their loot, and how to strike fear into the hearts of their victims. And Hornigold saw something special in the young sailor, a sharp mind and a fearless spirit, which made Edward perfect for the job. So he gave his men their own command, and soon after he got his first taste of victory. On June 21, 1716, Edward and his men ambushed a Portuguese slave ship named La Concorde. It was a brute of a vessel, bigger than most, with 3 masts and 4 decks. The crew outnumbered Edward's by almost 2 to 1, but he took his chances and won. The battle was fierce, but in the end, the Portuguese captain surrendered. Edward had just won his first pirate ship, the very vessel that would make him famous, or infamous, the mighty Queen Anne's Revenge. He stripped away the Portuguese insignia and replaced them with his skull and crossbones, a symbol of death and danger. He outfitted her with 40 guns, more than any other pirate ship in the New World, and set sail for calmer waters. As Blackbeard, he built a fleet, blockaded entire ports, and struck terror into the hearts of merchants and sailors. To the people of the Carolinas, he was the devil himself. One evening in 1717, Blackbeard anchored his ship just off the coast of Cape Batras. Then he led a group of men ashore to pillage a nearby fort. The town's governor tried to stop him, but Blackbeard held him hostage and forced him to watch as his men emptied the fort's coffers. It was just one of many plunderings that made Blackbeard rich and powerful. But as his legend grew, so did his enemies. Even though he'd plundered around the Caribbean, Blackbeard chose to settle in North Carolina when his fleet wasn't sailing. He bought land, cultivated crops, and lived like a gentleman farmer. But it was a short-lived retirement. Piracy was in his blood. And in 1718, when the governor of Virginia offered him a noble title and a Nobel Prize, Blackbeard politely declined. That prize was one of his former friends, Calico Jack Rackham, who betrayed him and joined the British Navy. Blackbeard refused to accept the deal, stole the governor's daughter, and returned to the sea. News of his mutiny reached the ears of the colonists, who'd suffered at his hands. It created quite a stir. Now the whole colony wanted him dead or alive. One man volunteered to lead the hunt, Lieutenant Robert Maynard. He was a naval officer in the Virginia Navy, a seasoned sailor, a tactician, and a ruthless killer. For months, Blackbeard evaded his grasp, always staying just beyond the reach of the Royal Navy. But the game of cat and mouse soon came to an end because Blackbeard made a fatal mistake. He underestimated his enemy and he overestimated himself. In 1718, Blackbeard attacked a British merchant ship carrying valuable cargo. He and his crew boarded the vessel and started looting, drinking, and partying. They partied hard, so hard that when they finally pulled anchor and set sail for Ocracoke Island, they left behind a small cache of booty. That mistake proved costly. As soon as Maynard heard of Blackbeard's latest plunder, he took off in pursuit. The winds were swift and the currents were kind, and soon he was close enough to spot his quarry. The next morning, the sky was heavy with rain clouds, the waves were high, and visibility was poor. Perfect conditions for a storm, perfect conditions for a battle. Around dawn, Maynard and his men opened fire. Cannons roared, sails ripped and splintered, men fell wounded on both sides. And through the smoke and spray, Maynard watched as a figure emerged from the pandemonium on Blackbeard's deck. He was holding a pistol in one hand and a cutlass in the other. His face was hidden behind a cloud of smoke, and the only thing Maynard could see were his blazing eyes. They locked onto each other and Maynard fired. It was a tense standoff. Each side waited for the other to make the first move. Finally, Blackbeard charged. He lunged forward, swinging his sword, but Maynard parried the blow and stabbed Blackbeard in the shoulder. Blackbeard staggered back and reloaded his pistol, but before he could pull the trigger, Maynard rushed forward again. Swords clashed, sparks flew. Steam rose from the water and the fight went on. Throughout the battle, Blackbeard fought like a man possessed. He was shot 5 times, stabbed more than 20, and wounded in more places than he could count. But he kept fighting, hacking and slashing until his swords were bent and broken, but it wasn't enough. As the battle raged, Maynard's men pulled out their boarding hooks and began scaling Blackbeard's ship. They fought hand to hand, man to man, and slowly but surely, Blackbeard's crew began to fall. One by one, they dropped to the deck, mortally wounded or dead. Soon, Blackbeard was surrounded. He knew the fight was lost. So as a last-ditch effort, he drew his long knife and charged the men, slashing and stabbing. He managed to wound a few, but eventually they overpowered him, bound his wrists together and dragged him off his ship. He resisted, he struggled, but there were too many men. They dragged him down below deck. When the tide turned, Blackbeard realized he was beaten. There was no escape. And somewhere between defeat and despair, Edward Teach died. Or did he? Maybe he died on that stormy morning off the coast of North Carolina. Maybe he died aboard the ship that bore his name. Maybe he died the death of a pirate, swinging from the gallows in chains. Or maybe, just maybe, he never died at all. When Lieutenant Maynard reported his victory to the governor, he described the look on Blackbeard's face, the blazing eyes, the wild grin, the defiant stare. He said Blackbeard's head was cut off and hung from the bowsprit of Maynard's ship as a warning to other would-be pirates, but there are no records to prove it. What we do know is that Blackbeard didn't die that day. Not really, his legend didn't die either. It lived on and grew. Blackbeard became the archetype of the pirate, ruthless, daring, theatrical. Pirates had existed for decades, but no one feared them as much as they feared Blackbeard. And no pirate ever became such a compelling character. His name appears in books, in films, even children's cartoons. And while much of what we believe about him is folklore, the truth is just as fascinating. Edward Teach Blackbeard was more than a pirate. He was a master of fear. He was a tactician. He was a symbol of rebellion on the open sea. And for a few short years, he ruled the waves like a ghost in the storm. Thanks for watching.